Welcome back. You're with Newsday. As we've been reporting, the Victorian Commonwealth Games are no longer. The Victorian Premier, Dan Andrews, made the big announcement this morning, citing major cost blowouts as the key reason. For more reaction, joining us live now is News Corp's federal political editor, James Campbell. James, good to see you. Really appreciate your time. Is this really the no-brainer sort of decision that Dan Andrews described it as a bit earlier?
Well, it was a no-brainer because basically, if you talk to people on the ground or public servants, the chances of them being able to get this done in time were very, very low indeed, and certainly not at the budget that they had offered it at. It was always a very strange decision to try and hold these games out in the regions when Melbourne has this infrastructure sitting there ready to go. I mean, obviously, we didn't seek these games. I mean, these sorts of games are not the kind of great bauble that they once were to cities. I mean, you saw that with the Olympics, where Brisbane was the only bidder. We essentially were handed a hospital hand pass by the Commonwealth Games. We accepted it. And then, for strange reasons, we decided that we were going to build a whole lot of temporary and very expensive infrastructure out in the regions that was going to be ripped out afterwards. And it was never going to get done, and it was never going to get done at that price. And the Victorian budget being what it is, I think they've just looked at it and thought, this is just crazy. We just haven't got the money for this. But was it a good idea in the first place? No, clearly not. It was a terrible idea.
And so what does this mean now for the state of Victoria, do you think, in terms of reputation, of its credibility as a host of international events?
Well, obviously it's embarrassing for us. We have a lot of pride in our ability to pull these sorts of things off. We've got one of the 4 Grand Slam tennis tournaments, but poor old Commonwealth Games is a bit of an orphan, really. It's a bit like the Commonwealth itself. I mean, the CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting this year or last year, the Prime Minister of Australia didn't bother going. It's perhaps a bit of a legacy of empire. It's coming to the end of its life. Australians are probably have more affection for it than anyone else in the world because we tend to top it, the medal table at it. So, no wonder we like it. But as I said, no one else really wanted it. And when the last time it was held, the Poms held it. They didn't hold it in London. They held it in Birmingham. It's just one of those things that I suspect might be slipping quietly away from us, the old Empire Games.
You don't think it's too dramatic to suggest this could kill the Games for good in terms of this one that's been canned? I mean, is it likely another Australian state?
Yeah, no, it could be. It could be. But if nobody wants it, that's that, isn't it? And what is the Commonwealth Games? I mean, it's a very strange. It's a almost eccentric collection of countries, none of whom, outside of hockey, with the exception of the Netherlands, are really sort of, primo. I mean, a Commonwealth Games record is a bit like a school record, really, isn't it? It's just one of those. It's just. It's not a world record. It just is what it is. And I think, if the Commonwealth Games were to disappear tomorrow, would anybody really care?
Well, obviously the athletes would, and it's pretty gut-wrenching for them, I guess, who'd been pinning their hopes on participating in these games, had been working towards this as a huge milestone in any athlete's career.
Oh, is it? But it's not like a World Championships or an Olympics, is it? It's just the UK competes as individual nations. Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales. The Americans aren't there, the Russians aren't there, the Chinese aren't there. All of the things that make a global sporting competition are not there. Canada's there, we're there. A large chunk of Africa's there. Singapore's there. India and Malaysia are there. But really, beyond that, it's almost an eccentric collection of countries, really, for a sporting event in this day and age. All of the cricket countries are there, I suppose. We should be grateful for that.
As you mentioned before, this all comes down to cost. Just how tight are the purse strings in Victoria at the moment? How dire is the outlook for that state?
Oh, everybody you talk to says it's very bad indeed. A whole lot of government agencies are being squeezed for efficiencies to the water authorities and people like that to pay money into the central coffers of government. We've seen the airport rail link put on hold. We've seen cost blowouts on basically everything that this government touches, whether it's the Westgate Tunnel, the level crossings. Nothing costs what they said it was going to cost. The Victorian budget is as bad as it's been since the early 90s. So anything that they can find to save money, it makes perfect sense. The Premier is committed to his suburban rail loop, this sort of Ceausescu-like remodelling of Melbourne that nobody that you talk to, even in half of his own cabinet, thinks a good idea. If everything else has to be sacrificed to pay for that, it will be.
Yeah, what a mess. James Campbell, really appreciate your insights. Thanks for making the time.
It's great to live down here, I tell you. See ya.